What if I told you the biggest mistake people make when planning a trip to Asia is they treat an entire continent as if it's one country? Asia is multiple countries, multiple cultures, and multiple different weather systems. If you pack for Thailand the way you pack for Japan, or assume that credit card acceptance is the same all over Asia, your dream vacation may turn into a logistical nightmare extremely quickly. Later in this video, I'm also going to talk about the innocent, everyday hand gesture, but in Asia, it's considered impolite, rude, and it might just end up with you in a hostile situation that you don't want to be in. So make sure you stay till the end when I tell you what that gesture is. Hi, and welcome back to Dreamweaver Travels. My name is Bill, and this is your home for turning massive bucket list travel dreams into flawless executed realities. If you're planning an epic escape to Asia or you would like to be planning one, go ahead and hit that like button now. And if you enjoy learning about destinations and how to plan dream vacations to them, go ahead and subscribe. And go ahead down in the comments, type in your number one dream destination. If it's Asia, type Asia. If it's something else, type that. Who knows? I might just do a video on that in the coming weeks. Traveling to Asia can be incredibly rewarding, but planning a trip to Asia can be very daunting. Just the sheer scale, the differences in the weather, the distinct, unique cultures can all become very overwhelming. Today, we're going to break down that ultimate planning roadmap. We'll talk about the major pitfalls so you can avoid them, and we'll talk about the essential cultural rules that you need to know before you even board a plane. The first step in planning a successful Asian dream vacation is to understand that there are different regions and each one requires different planning strategies. First, we have East Asia, and that's going to include places like Japan, South Korea, China. These places are highly modernized, efficient. They have efficient public transit, and they have a distinct four-season weather pattern. Planning here focuses heavily on bullet train logistics and advanced bookings for major landmarks. And then we have Southeast Asia, and that's going to include places like Thailand, Vietnam, Bali, Cambodia. These are tropical climates, budget-friendly, and slower than the modern cities of Japan and China. It's a more laid-back pace. Planning here revolves around regional flights, local drivers, and some island hopping. In addition to those two major regions, we also have to look at the different weather in the different places. You can't just look at a calendar and decide, I want to go to Asia in July because it's summer here. Now that we've kind of isolated the different regions, let's talk about weather and how that might impact when you want to go to Asia. Asia's weather is dictated by powerful monsoon seasons and distinct regional seasons. If you get this wrong, you could face ruined excursions or extreme climates that you weren't ready for. Let's break down how their weather falls throughout the year. We'll start with spring, and for them, that's March to May. This is going to be the crown jewel time to go to East Asia. It's the cherry blossom season in Japan and South Korea, bringing mild, comfortable temperatures. However, travel to Southeast Asia during this time, it's going to be scorching hot. Places like Bangkok can hit grueling temperatures of 105 degrees Fahrenheit or 40 degrees Celsius with intense humidity before the rain arrives. So during that March to May period is your East Asia hotspot, but not so much your Southeast Asia. Next, we're going to talk about summer, and that goes from June to August. Here, travel flips dramatically. In East Asia, the weather becomes extremely hot and humid, and it's their main rainy season. Also, in late summer is their typhoon season. So you probably want to avoid East Asia during this time. And in Southeast Asia, things don't look that much better in certain areas. We're talking peak monsoon season, afternoon downpours, high humidity, and boat transfer cancellations, making logistics a nightmare in areas like Thailand and Vietnam. But there is a good side to this. Bali and central Indonesia are exceptions here. Summers here are going to be dry, sunny. It's their peak season. So in the spring, we had East Asia. In the summer, we're looking at Bali and central Indonesia, but we're staying away from everywhere else. Next, we'll talk about autumn, fall time, September to November. This is another great time to visit East Asia. The weather's cooling, so it's not quite as hot, and the autumn foliage blankets the temples in deep reds and golds, a beautiful sight to see. In Southeast Asia, the monsoon season is starting to taper off and will be cleared up by the end of November, making it transition into comfortable, dry weather, which leads me into the winter time, December to February. If you're heading to East Asia, prepare for it to be cold. We're talking freezing cold. Heavy snow. Yes, heavy snow. Now, if you enjoy the winter weather and you want to go skiing or you enjoy winter illuminations, this might be a good time to go to East Asia, but dress accordingly. Meanwhile, this is the absolute peak time to visit Southeast Asia. Places like Thailand, Vietnam, Cambodia are experiencing cool, dry, beautiful, sunny days. So if you're looking for a cooler experience in that Southeast region, the wintertime is going to be when you're going to want to go. But remember, go to East Asia, you're going to have snow and winter conditions. Southeast Asia, cool, dry, sunny days. So depending on where you go, might dictate when you want to go. All right, so now we've talked about the where and the when. Let's talk about some things that can ruin your trip. The first one is the one we normally talk about as the first pitfall, and that's going to be your passport validity. Remember, Asia isn't a country. Asia is a continent. Each country is going to have its own rules. Typically for passports, you're going to need a 6-month validity rule. If your passport expires 5 months before your travel date, the airlines aren't going to allow you to board. So make sure you check your expiration date, check the requirements of each country you're traveling to. And yes, even if you're just transiting or you have a layover in a country, check that country because a lot of times there's certain rules even just for transiting through a country. Make sure that you have all the documentation that's required depending on what you're doing. If you need help, you reach out to me. I can help you work through your documentation. Next, we're going to talk about cash versus card. Now, places like Tokyo and the bigger cities, they're going to be very card friendly. You're probably going to be able to use your card in most places. But major parts of Asia run only on a cash system. They don't accept cards. So you want to make sure if you're going to be traveling to one of those areas where cards aren't accepted, you have enough local cash, which you can get either from a bank or AAA here before you leave, or there's ways that you can get it in the country by going to an ATM and downloading cash. If you need information on that, I can help you through it. And I always recommend carrying at least a small amount of local currency whenever you go somewhere, just in case. Sometimes, you want to buy a bottle of water for a yen or $1 or £1 or whatever it is, wherever you are. It's just easier to just have that cash and be able to do that. And the last pitfall I'm going to talk about, and this is true pretty much for everywhere you go, whenever you're in a crowd, always make sure you're paying attention to your surroundings. That way, then you can avoid being pickpocketed or scammed or any of those other things. And particularly in Asia, there is one scam that is running pretty rapid, and I'll tell you about that a little later on in the video, so stay tuned. All right, next up, I want to talk about communication. As you know, Asia doesn't speak English as its primary language, and that can cause a lot of stress for a lot of people. And Asia, especially because they have their own alphabet, their language looks completely foreign. And it is. But you can overcome that with the right strategy. And let me go over, I have 3 points to talk about how to deal with the communication gap. Leveraging the English safety net is the first strategy. In almost every major tourist hub, airport, hotel, popular restaurant across Asia, you'll find a high percentage of people that speak at least some English. You're going to be really cut off from help. So, first thing, if you're staying in the major tourist areas, you're probably going to experience folks that can at least communicate some in English. The next strategy, download translation apps. Google Translate is a wonderful tool. You can even download the individual languages for the places that you're going. So even if you don't have cell service, you can still translate. And the camera with Google Translate is going to be your best friend for reading signs, menus, all of that stuff. Point your phone at whatever it is you're trying to read, and it translates it right there for you. It's a wonderful tool. Google Apps isn't the only one. Whichever one you feel more comfortable with, use that. And that's going to be your second strategy. And then your final strategy is remember, humans have been communicating with each other long before we had languages. Pointing, gesturing, warm smiles, all of those things can definitely get your message across. I've personally traveled to many countries where English wasn't the primary language, and I'll tell you, a warm smile is going to be your best friend. If you're going to try, they're going to try, and you're going to be able to figure out how to communicate. Remember, traveling isn't about being perfectly fluent. It's about being willing to try and respecting their culture. The next thing we're going to talk about with Asia is their cultural heritage. Asia is very cultural. Asia is full of tradition, and respecting that tradition is going to completely change how the locals will treat you. If you're respectful and understand their local traditions, they're going to be more accepting of you. And if you're disrespectful, they're going to let you know. So the first thing that you need to know, sacred places and dress code when visiting temples, shrines, mosques, all across Asia. Modesty is mandatory. It's not something that you should consider. It's mandatory. Shoulders, knees should always be covered. I recommend bringing a lightweight shawl or something that you can put over your shoulders if it's in one of the warmer days. This can be a lifesaver. Furthermore, always look at the ground before entering a building or a home. Do the look down, look at the ground. If you see a pile of shoes there, take the hint. Take yours off. It's going to save you some embarrassing moments. Trust me. And if you're going to places like Thailand and Cambodia, the rules of the body in the Buddhist culture is going to become very critical for you to understand. The head is considered the most sacred part of the body, while the feet are considered the lowest and the dirtiest. Never, ever touch anyone on their head, not even a child. And never point the soles of your feet or your shoes toward a person or a sacred statue. So you want to make sure that if you're sitting out in front of a temple and you sit down on the grass, make sure that the soles of your feet are aimed towards the temple. It's considered disrespectful. Don't do it. Pay attention to these cultures and you'll find that it's going to be much more enriching. Whether you believe in what they believe in is irrelevant. You're visiting their country. Show them the respect they deserve. Remember earlier when I warned you about a hand gesture that could get you in trouble? In many Western countries, thumbs up, flashing the V sign for victory, these are standard, they're normal. But in parts of the Middle East and Western Asia, a thumbs up is the equivalent of another hand gesture that we use, with another single finger pointing up in the air. So when you say this and you're like, yay, thumbs up, man, yeah, you're not saying what you think you're saying. You're saying something very obscene. Even worse, peace sign. Peace, brother. Your palm facing inward like this is a major insult in countries with British colonial history. Singapore, Malaysia. When in doubt, keep your gestures neutral and always bow or nod to show respect. It's about reverence. So no thumbs up, no peace signs, and you'll be doing fine. All right. So next, I'm going to talk about something that you really need to pay attention to, and it's a scam that's happening a lot in Asia, and it's a transportation scam. What'll happen is you're getting ready to go up to this beautiful temple to visit it, and cab driver will come up to you and say, "Hey, that temple's closed." And you're like, "Oh no, now what?" But he's there to save you. You'll say, "Hey, I know another temple not too far away. It's beautiful. It's even more beautiful than this one that's closed. And I know that it's open. And you know what? I can get you a special deal. So you want me to give you a ride there? It'll only cost you whatever." And you're like, "Wow, this is great." And then you get in the car and he takes you, but he doesn't take you to this beautiful temple. Instead, he takes you to his friend's jewelry store, and they high pressure try to sell you some jewelry. Now you just got in a car, drove away from where you knew where you were, so you don't really know where you are, and you're getting pressured by this jewelry salesman. Or worse. We're not going to talk about what that worse is. So just know that that's out there. It's kind of sneaky. Not even sure if it's really illegal, but that kind of shady. And you know, now you've missed out on seeing the temple that you wanted to see, and you got some salesman trying to sell you his wares and give a commission to the cab driver or the tuk-tuk or any other transportation that's out there. That's a scam that runs. So those are the basics on how to plan an Asia trip. If you found this interesting, found it informative, go ahead, give me a thumbs up. I don't find it rude or disrespectful. Subscribe if you want to hear about more content. And if you didn't like it, give me a thumbs down. That way then I know I should change things up. Also, if you could leave me a comment, tell me what you liked, what you didn't like, or if you have other questions, I'd be happy to answer them for you. So until the next time, keep having great vacations.